The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Welcome to today's webinar, Abrazo a Posadas las Familias, Accompanying Families Supporting Loved Ones with Disabilities from Spanish-Speaking Households. My name is Rachel Chung, Disabilities Coordinator for the Archdiocese of Washington, Department of Special Needs Ministries. Later in the webinar, we will welcome Lilia Leon, Executive Director of Comunidad de Recursos Hispanos, or Hispanic Community Resources. Please note, we will have both English and Spanish languages during this webinar. There will also be links to resources both in English and Spanish. What does it mean when we state all are welcome in our church community? Today, we will share information on accompanying families supporting a loved one with disabilities from Spanish-speaking households. We recognize the amazing diversity of the Archdiocese of Washington in many languages and cultures, including American Sign Language. For today's webinar, we will focus on Spanish-speaking families, recognizing as well there is much diversity within the Spanish language community. Please stay tuned for future webinars exploring further cultural implications for supporting families in a variety of ministries. Perhaps you yourself can see there are many similarities and experiences, and conversely, there are cultural differences to celebrate and enhance our faith community. Pictured here are, starting from left to right, are youth from different Archdiocese of Washington parishes. First, we see a picture here of some youth performing a liturgical dance at the Department of Special Needs Ministries Day of Reflection this past March. Then in our center picture, we see two young people bringing up gifts during the offertory procession at the White Mass. More information to follow regarding the White Mass. And here in our final picture, we see two children playing the role of Joseph and Mary during Hispanic Community Resources Las Posadas celebration. The youth pictured here all live with a variety of special needs, but we can easily see from these photographs how integral and important it is to ensure we are all included in the one church family. Are there cultural differences and influences on how disabilities are viewed? Yes. Lilia will join us shortly to share her experiences supporting the Hispanic community. I have also worked in cross-cultural settings. We often define culture in the context of food, dress, holidays, etc. But culture has a deeper influence on us that is not outwardly visible, such as how we view time, how we see family ties, and how we value our elderly. Indeed, these influences are also present on how we view disabilities. For example, when I worked in the Cambodian community several years ago, I experienced a view of disability vastly different from my own. Although changing, many Cambodians still view today disability as a punishment for a sin in a past life. This belief led to fear and abandonment of children, especially those children living with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Also, until very recently, there were not many examples of self-advocates or people living with disabilities in leadership roles in businesses, government, or in the education system. Families really could not envision a future for their child in Cambodia because there were not many people living with disabilities in these leadership roles. Thankfully, changes continue to happen, and the future does indeed look promising. What are a few simple tips and strategies parish staff and volunteers can implement right away to ensure everyone is fully included in the life of the parish. First and foremost, materials must be presented, including bulletin announcements and religious education materials, both in English and Spanish. Probably from your own experiences working in a parish, there are times when the adult son or daughter or child may be the translator for the parent. So it's helpful to have those materials side by side in order to make sure all the family members fully understand the different information for the parish. Ideally, the person who you may ask to translate the materials or serve as a translator would be familiar with disability terminology and our Catholic liturgies, celebrations, and teachings. Although it would not be a requirement for that person necessarily to be Catholic, we have found that it is very helpful in that translation process, including also terms used for disability, that they themselves are familiar with how that language can be translated in a way that's going to make the most sense for the family. Our experiences here at the Department of Special Needs Ministries has also been that the best way to reach families is really family to family intentional outreach. The family knows other families in a similar position, meaning families know the other children living with disabilities. And when they reach out family to family, we have found much more success in bringing those people into religious education and other outreach types of events. Parishes should really consider hosting informational workshops. It could be from a variety of nonprofits or service providers. We have found here too, where we are based at the Pope Francis Center, we have hosted several types of workshops for families. And when we've tried to hold these workshops outside a church setting, the attendance is very minimal. And at times we've actually had no families show up when we tried to hold events at libraries or community centers. Most families feel safe coming to a church type of setting for a variety of reasons. And they're also familiar with the church setting and feel like it's a place of trust. So we've taken those opportunities to present information such as how to navigate the school system, to how to change from a pediatrician to an adult medical provider. And again, the attendance is much more successful when it's held at a church type setting. When you have registration for religious education, especially as parish volunteers or staff, please gently remind those families, are they registering all their children for classes? We have found in many different parishes across our Archdiocese, families don't always feel like there's a place for their child living with disabilities. They will register their other children, but they will not mention their other child. Does this mean they do not love the child? Of course not. The family just feels that there's no place for their child with a learning need. And we found several examples where we've even found adult children later who have never received the sacraments from our Spanish-speaking families. So again, we can use that time to gently remind families if all their children are indeed being registered for classes. And again, as I mentioned in my experience working in the Cambodian culture, if we have families and people living with disabilities with visible roles in our church, again, those families see that and they feel more comfortable coming to Mass and other church celebrations with their loved one with disabilities. And also they feel that their loved one will have a place in their church community. Recently, at the parish next door to the Pope Francis Center, St. Mary's Catholic Church in Landover Hills, Maryland, altar servers I've recently come to the parish. One altar server lives with Down syndrome, and it's such a powerful message to have that person up on the altar serving and helping the pastor. And the other families then are encouraged and feel strengthened that indeed one day their son or daughter will have a true place at the church. Now we will welcome Lilia, Executive Director for Hispanic Community Resources. Welcome, Lilia.
Good morning, Rachel. Thank you for inviting me.
So, Lilia, can you please introduce yourself?
Okay, like you say, I am the Executive Director of Comunidad de Recursos Hispanos, that's Hispanic Community Resource, and I'm working for 4 years this program.
Great. Can you tell us a little bit about your background?
Okay, my background. I started working with people with disability when I started in St. James. I studied 3 years of psychology in my country, Cochabamba, Bolivia, and I have 2 nieces. My nieces has disability. One has cerebral palsy, and the other has Turner syndrome. And that's when I started having this contact with persons with disability. 9 years ago, I started with Sister Revelación and Father Pablo from the IEB at St. James. We started classes for the religious class for special needs because the parents has that interest. They're asking if we can do something for their kids. And that's when we start these classes. Now, like I said, I'm working in the Hispanic Resource Community Program. And the office is at the Archdiocese of Washington here in Landover Hill.
So, what are some of the challenges you have encountered in your work with families?
Wow, that's a lot challenge because our community, like you say, is varied. It's from different countries, different. Even we are Hispanic, we have different words, how we call and how we see, how we think. Even we speak Spanish. One of the challenges in my community is that they don't trust easy, and nobody. They want. They prefer to be like in a church setting because they suffer a lot lies during their lives here when they are coming because they don't know the language, they don't know how work the system, and to have like what I said, to earn that trust has to be one-on-one. You have to be part of that family, talking about their problems, being part of their interests, what are their needs. If you don't do that one, it's very difficult to know how you can help.
So, is there a particular encounter that really speaks to you and inspires you to continue your work?
Oh my God. What inspires me most to work for them is that love and I receive the hugs from the children. 9 years ago, a girl who came to our program, she speaks just a few words. She didn't able to pronounce my name. Now she comes and calls my name and she says she loves me. Those moments I feel God loved me through them. And that's my inspiration.
So, what advice would you have for a director of religious education or DRE or a parish volunteer who is interested in outreach to Hispanic families supporting a loved one with disabilities?
The best advice is to approach families talking and interest in what they are going through one-on-one. I think family to family, if you are like director, you have to, like I said, even if you speak English, you have to speak their language. That means I think you don't have to speak Spanish, but when I say you speak your languages, you have to see their needs. what exactly they need. If they have a child with disability, you need to know how to approach. That's a big problem now in most of the parish. The people, they don't know how to approach to the people with families with kids with special needs, and that's why they don't feel they are part of the parish. Another is always ask if they have someone else at home. Always, because if you don't ask, they are going to tell you, I have 4 kids. The 4 kids you see in there, but they don't count the kid they left at home who doesn't have the sacraments. And because they are ashamed, they can think that's a punish from God, or they really don't think the church can help. And I think everybody is part of the church, all with a disability or without disability. And that's why we have to always ask, and then somebody else at home? Do you have somebody else who didn't receive the sacraments? And that's when we find the families, they have somebody else at home without sacraments.
So we spoke a bit about this, but what do you think are the specific needs of the Hispanic community in supporting a loved one with disabilities? Again, recognizing the Hispanic community, of course, is a very diverse community in and of itself. But for today's webinar, we'll just speak more in a general way. But what do you think the specific needs are?
Just think, for people who born here and speak the language, it's difficult. Imagine how difficult can be for immigrants. They fear, they don't know how it works, the system, they don't know where to start in schools or in the doctor settings, and if they don't have a translator. In some parishes they don't understand, they are not well, they feel they are not welcome because their children make a noise, they are moving, they are not quiet, and it's very challenging for our community. And what they need is that one. Workshops work very well. We found doing workshops in our parish help to understand, not only for the parishioners, but for the staff, or for people, the lay people who help in the mass, ushers, ministry, extraordinary ministries, for everybody. It's helping those workshops, and we need those workshops in every parish.
So I know, Lilia, we always speak to, it's not only forming the child or youth, but it's also forming the whole parish when we think about this specific outreach.
Correct. We always have to look, the whole body of Christ is the whole church. Is that means everybody who is involved in that parish.
So we spoke a little bit about the differences that and the ways to have specific outreach, but what have you found are the things that all families share, regardless of your cultural background?
Well, we are very similar in our families, because we are Catholic. We have only one faith and we believe one thing. And that's why we don't have much difference in that one. But like, all the parents want all the sacraments for their kids. All the parents, they want to see success to their kids in every way. Doesn't matter which country they are. Like parent, we want the best for our kids.
Yes, and I found that too as well, working in different cross-cultural settings, that indeed the vast majority of parents want to see their child achieve all that they can achieve. And again, in regards to our Catholic faith, also to be full and active members in their parish.
Cool. Yes.
So, Lilia, if you were invited to a private audience with Pope Francis, what would you share with Pope Francis about ministering to families, ministering with families, supporting loved ones with disabilities? What would you share with him about your work?
If I have that luck to be one day, I hope so. And the first thing I will ask for is be a mandatory for all the seminarians. and all the convents, all the trainings for lay people can be mandatory in learning about how to give catechesis to people with disability, because we are all one body, the Christ of the body of Christ. We all have the need of God. That's why we are here. And the other request could be all the dioceses of the world, not just here, offer training for the catechesis class with people with disabilities, so that all parishes could offer us something like routine, not something special, but something like routine class for people with disability, and can all be included.
Okay, excellent. And I think all of us have seen, and if you have not, I would really encourage you to look at those images where Pope Francis is embracing children and adults living with disabilities. He's again shown in many instances that not only does he greet people with disabilities, but he actually will embrace them. And I think that's the best example we can see as a leader, that all are welcome to our church. So we're going to share a little bit of information about what HCR does, but what would you see as the next area of focus in your work?
The areas in which we want to work is offering training for people with disability at different levels according to the disability of the person. This is a long term. It's a project we want to do it. At the moment, we want to make certain workshops, giving more information for the parents, for doing the support group for the parents we have already, with different workshops like we did last year about advocacy and how to learn the transition when their kids they are leaving from school. And another thing we want to do it's maybe next year is the fashion show for everyone who has disability and want to participate.
Okay, excellent. So we'll be looking forward to seeing the continuing work of Hispanic Community Resources. We will now open the webinar for questions and comments. Please use the chat box on the side of your screen to type your questions. Questions can be submitted in English or Spanish. Lilia is here and ready to answer any questions from our Spanish-speaking audience. As people type in their questions or comments, we will continue to share information about HCR and other upcoming events in our Archdiocese of Washington.
You can see two pictures here. One is a mother with her son with a disability. It's talking about, I don't know if it's this a video, we can hear the video, we can listen to the video. It's talking about advocacy. What means advocacy for each family?
Abogacía es luchar por los derechos de mi hijo para que tengan los mismos beneficios de todos, como todos. ¿Cómo luchar? Hablando con los representantes y hablando en las escuelas por sus derechos.
You can see the other picture is a mother with her son too. They want, they say, I want them to listen to me. It's very important for us to teach our parents and the people with disability they can do the advocacy by themselves, or their parents for their kids, because we are the parents. We need to be the who speak for our kids. For most kids we hear in our family, they are not verbal, and we need to work for them. Para los que hablan español, Comunidad de Recursos Hispanos es un programa que tiene como 4 años y ya comenzamos y damos talleres para padres en diferentes tópicos. Uno es abogacía, el otro es cómo hacer la transición cuando los chicos ya van a salir del high school, del colegio, qué se necesita hacer, cuáles son los pasos a dar. También les ayudamos a llenar algunas aplicaciones si necesitan o a leérselos algunas cartas, y tenemos programas para los chicos del programa. Los lunes tenemos Spirit Club, que es una fundación que nos da dinero para tener clases de gimnasia y movimiento. Y los viernes tenemos clases de arte. Pueden pintar en Canvas, podemos tener manualidades, podemos tener movie night, lo que se llama la noche de cine, bingo. Los viernes es muy, muy variado. Las actividades son totalmente diferentes cada viernes. En la otra foto que pueden ver, estamos ahí, los papás haciendo abogacía. Fuimos a visitar al senador Ramírez en el día de poder hablar con ellos y mostrarles la necesidad y hacerles saber que nuestra comunidad está unida y que también tiene necesidades y que queremos aprender. Necesitamos saber más, y eso les hacemos saber a las autoridades. Here in the community, Hispanic Community Resource Picture, you can see on Mondays we have a Spirit Club Foundation. They send us somebody who are certified to give class for people with disability. And the other picture you can see, we are working with the ARC of Prince George County. We are really good partners with them, working in financial planning for the parents, how they can work and how they can plan their lives for their kids. Religious education we have every Saturday from 2 to 3. This is a group for parents and for their kids. Kids, depending on the disability, we have 3 or 4 groups, small groups. And the parents at the same time, they are receiving some catechesis, or sometimes we have a priest or somebody who can come and give another talks about religious.
And Lilia, we also have some children, and have in the past children who are also use sign language as well. So it's a wide needs that are trying to be met here at the classes here at the Pope Francis Center.
Right. Yes. Yeah. We have in somebody who gave the catechesis in sign language. It's depending what they need. Thanks God, we have somebody who can help us with that. And like I said, we have different 4 groups depending of the disability. We have different activities. One of the activities that are coming is in October 26th. We're going to have costume party. It's not necessary celebrating another feast, but we want to celebrate in our community, teaching our kids. We can celebrate, but we don't have to celebrate with those costumes. They are not good for special kids because sometimes they are afraid, but this is most for kids. They can wear different costumes of saints or heroes. Like last year, we have our saint party, because most kids they was wearing a costume from saints. Even the cake and everything was a saint. It was a great party for our community. We have another is the dinner for Thanksgiving dinner. We're going to celebrate Saturday, November 23rd, here at Pope Francis Center. Everybody's invited. Everybody's invited. It's a potluck. You can come and see how our community we celebrate our Thanksgiving dinner. Then we have in December, like always, Posadas. Posadas is very big one. Everybody, we are working with San Francis de Assis, that's a deaf community in Spanish. And both communities, we are together here celebrating our Posadas. That's December 21st at 6:30. Everybody is welcome to come here to our Posadas.
And all are welcome to our 10th annual White Mass. The program for the liturgy will have written Spanish translation inside. The White Mass will be held on Sunday, October 27th at 11:30 a.m. at the Cathedral of St. Matthew the Apostle. The Mass will also be ASL interpreted. And again, this is an opportunity for everyone to come and celebrate the gifts of people living with disabilities.
Sí, este año vamos a celebrar la Misa Blanca, como llamamos, es el año 10 ya. Estamos casi, Comunidad de Recursos Hispanos está presente desde el primer año. Este año tendremos a 2 personas que estarán ayudando en el altar, 2 servidores del altar. Este año ya están preparados 2 de ellos que van a poder estar en el altar. Y eso sí me da mucha alegría poder ver los resultados. Y los padres se admiran y dicen, nunca pensé ver a mi hijo servir en la misa. Y lo que siempre les digo, no pongan límites a los hijos. No sabemos hasta dónde ellos pueden ir. Solo apoyémonos y démosle la oportunidad de que sigan adelante. Así que los esperamos en la Misa Blanca este octubre 27 a las 11:30 y es en la Catedral de San Mateo que está en Rhode Island Avenue en Washington, D.C.
Go ahead, Lilia. I was going to just say, at the St. Francis Deaf Catholic Church, where many of the activities for HCR are held, the parishioners here at this parish recognized how the face of their parish was changing. More and more families were coming with children who are deaf and live with disabilities from the Hispanic community. So as a response to this change, the parishioners and the leaders of this parish proposed offering simultaneous Spanish language translation. The Mass continues to be ASL interpreted and uses PowerPoint slides as a visual aid for the prayers and the responses that we use during Mass. The Spanish language translation was added to these PowerPoint slides, and a radio headset system is used for the translation of the homily, for example, and other parts of the Mass. And Lilia has provided that translation on most Sundays. Recently, as you can see pictured here, Archbishop Gregory celebrated Mass. Archbishop Gregory noted in a Catholic Standard article describing his experience celebrating this Mass that with simple adaptations, all can be welcomed at Mass. So the Archbishop so beautifully put that we do and can make simple changes, such as our changes regarding how we presented information during the Mass and offering Spanish language, so we could fully include all the families that were coming to our parish.
Yes, that's the best thing we can have for our community. They can come here and receive and be at Mass with their kids, and they can. It doesn't matter if they don't speak English because they're gonna have a translator to the Spanish. Es muy lindo tener a las familias en San Francis Deaf Catholic Church, que es una iglesia pequeñita que está aquí en Landover Hill, recibiendo a todas las familias que tienen hijos sordos y que ellos no hablan inglés. La traducción se hace del inglés al español y ellos pueden escuchar pueden ver la misa en señas. Y eso es muy hermoso, poder tener a toda la familia juntos.
Excellent. And I think, again, just to emphasize that with simple changes, we can make sure that the families feel welcome, that they're included. Our PowerPoint that we use during this Mass is really a visual aid for our deaf community. It does help that they also see the sign language, but again, that's reinforced with the readings for the Mass, for example. So what we did was simply add the Spanish language translation from the USCCB website. So it was really just a matter of taking that information that's already translated and putting it side by side with the English readings. And again, with Lilia's assistance, we can have the spoken language translation available, and the children who are deaf are, of course, seeing the American Sign Language. So, and this way, too, the whole family is included in Mass. Lily and I have talked many times how sometimes one child is left at home, but that means then the family is split. They're not getting the nourishment they need as parents if one parent is at home and the other parent is with the children at Mass. So, as you can see, this beautiful example here of a family celebrating Mass and, of course, meeting the Archbishop, which was a wonderful day.
Yes.
And an upcoming opportunity, again, for families, lay leaders, clergy, and anyone and all who support people living with disabilities in ministry will be right here in Washington, D.C. The National Catholic Partnership on Disability will hold a symposium with speakers that will talk about the past work of disability ministry and where it is going in the future. One of the speakers, Dr. Romero, will be there, who is a very respected and well-known theologian on disability ministry. So the symposium will be held on November 9th and 10th at Catholic University. And there will be American Sign Language and Spanish language translation. And the symposium is no charge to attend that. So again, if you are a leader, catechist, family member, person living with disabilities, all are welcome to hear about this past work in disability ministry, to celebrate, and also to look to the future and where we can go from there. And again, Spanish language translation and American Sign Language will be available during the symposium portion and the leadership networking session, which is on the following day.
Yeah, this is a great tool we can use because it's going to be in English and in Spanish. And this is really great for lay people or people who are really near to the families who are working, and they can learn a lot from this workshop. Y les invitamos a todos los que hablan español que se registren, la información la tienen ahí, y si no pueden llamarme al teléfono 240-706-0093 para que les pueda ayudar a registrarse si es que lo necesitan, pero este va a ser un taller muy grande, muy lindo, porque es una persona que realmente sabe muchísimo y que puede ayudarnos como padres latinos. Será en inglés, pero será con traducción al español.
And we're very blessed here in the Archdiocese of Washington to be close to the National Catholic Partnership on Disability. They are based here in Washington, D.C. So please, we welcome all families to take this opportunity to share in this national dialogue and attend as much as you can on the sessions. I do believe it's all day on Saturday and Sunday, but any participation in that day, we need you to come and speak and be a part of this conversation. And again, the theologian coming to speak, Dr. Romero, very dynamic and well-known speaker, and I think we will all enjoy his information that he will present. And you see that this flyer is also available as a handout with this webinar. And as Lilia mentioned, their contact information regarding the Spanish language translation is available. Her name is Esther Garcia, as Lilia mentioned. So we see that we do not have any questions at this time, but we do have our contact information available here, email, phone, also video phone for our deaf community, and Twitter and Facebook. So please feel free to reach out to us. Again, if you have that Spanish language need, please feel free to leave a message, and we will definitely, with Lilia's assistance, return your call or email. So please do not hesitate to reach out to us. Or again, as parish staff and volunteers and catechists, we are here to help you in that journey of outreach.
Thank you, Rachel. Yes, but for all the people who really wants to make a change, even this little change in our parish, please don't hesitate to call here to the Department of Special Needs. We are here to help you.
This resource page that we have compiled is available as a handout with this webinar. Please note that there is a Spanish language translation available on the USCCB, or the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops website, of the guidelines for the celebration of the sacraments with persons with disabilities. So this is available as a document that you can download. And of course, I have the link as well for the English version. And this document, the guidelines for the celebration of the sacraments, is a very helpful guide on how we as church can be one holy Catholic family. We also have resources for the Loyola Press Adaptive Finding God, which is bilingual, many parts, and I know they're continuing to work on a full Spanish language translation. Also, the University of Dayton Institute of Pastoral Initiatives, again, has materials available in Spanish and English that are adapted. And I think these materials, even though it does talk about specifically for children living with disabilities, the tools are very helpful for all children. So any catechist or director of religious education should certainly explore those resources. They're very hands-on and visual, and I think very helpful for any child to learn about our faith. And also, I have found that the University of Dayton materials could also be adapted for any adults. As Lilia and I mentioned, sometimes we find families that have adult children who did not receive the sacraments or only received perhaps baptism. So this is another way to reach people, our adults that are in need of receiving the sacraments. So both those catechetical resources do have bilingual materials available. And we also have a few articles here that aren't a faith-based resource, but certainly talk about the importance of cross-cultural ministry and outreach to people from diverse communities, and how these communities sometimes face double discrimination, not only discrimination as a person living with disabilities, but also a person who is from the African American community or the Hispanic community. So it really talks about how we need to be aware of those communities as well. And also they note here that several of our communities of color in the United States also have higher rates of disability. So we really have to be very intentional when we're thinking about cross-cultural ministry and outreach to be aware that the disability rates can be higher in those communities, and that we have to consider that as well in our outreach. And excellent articles. And we also have Lilia's contact information here. And again, you can also reach out to the department, but please, if you have families, when Lilia says all are welcome, that is a true and sincere greeting that we give to families for all of our events that we have here at the Pope Francis Center. And please join us for our next Lunch and Learn in November, where we will talk about resources for Advent and how we can prepare the way of the Lord. Thank you again, Lilia, for joining us today and sharing all the work you do to support how we can accompany families, how we can walk with families. And we look forward to seeing everyone at the White Mass.
Thank you for inviting me. Gracias por escucharnos.
Thank you, everyone, and we look forward to seeing you again.